Time is the single most precious resource you will ever have, and it does not have a dollar symbol after it because your time can't be bought because it's priceless, really. What's going on, everybody? Chris Naugle coming back for the Money School podcast. And I've got somebody that I've known for a long time, an ex-professional hockey player, which we're definitely going to talk about that. Up here in Buffalo, New York, we love hockey. I mean, we're almost Canadian up here. So, I mean, I think it's a mandatory thing at birth that if you're Canadian, you must watch hockey. So here in Buffalo, it's kind of the same thing. But not only has he, been a professional hockey player, professional athlete, but he's also done over 2,000 real estate deals. His first flip being in 2004. But it goes on to even be a better story. But I'm just going to pause and put a pin in that because I want Bob to explain all of this to you. But before that, folks, let's give a really warm Money School welcome to my guest, Mr. Bob Lachance. What's going on, buddy?
Nice, Chris. Thanks for having me. We haven't, obviously, I was on a podcast, about a couple of years ago? So it's been a little while, and it's nice to see you again. Obviously, we saw each other recently because we've both been traveling a lot. So it's nice to actually hone in and be at home a little bit. But to answer your question, I played professional hockey, like I said, like you said a little bit earlier, for 8 years, 4 years here in the U.S., 4 years in Europe. And towards the end of my career, I started thinking, hey, what am I going to do next? I know a lot of your listeners are different types of industries. But I'm looking at it and I don't know if you know this, but I went to school for 4 years at Boston University and I left 2 classes short to get my degree. So it was either go back to school or jump into an industry that didn't, had 0 barriers of entry. So I figured I don't want to go back to school. So let me jump into an industry that, you read books, you see so many individuals that are extremely, extremely wealthy. And again, I wasn't a business owner, but I said, hey, you know what? Now I'm a real estate investor. So I jumped into investing. My first deal actually did pretty good. I made about $32,000 on my first deal. But I knew nothing about business. I knew nothing about marketing. I knew nothing about building a team. So I had to figure that out. And I joined a local real estate investment association. And I saw a speaker on pre-foreclosure, which is short sale investing, et cetera. So I'm like, all right, this sounds familiar. So I bought the guy's course, and now I was a short sale investor. And I went from a rehabber to a short sale investor in a matter of 2 months. And then one of the things that you and I talk about off camera is for me, I don't like working by myself. So I like working with other individuals. So my next meeting at the local real estate investment association, I went to every single person, said, who is the best short sale guy in Connecticut? And they all pointed to one individual. I think you know him. His name is Pat Precourt. Yep. So I walked up to him. I said, Pat, you had no idea who I am, but I'm interested in learning more about the business. I'm not looking for a job. I'm looking to join a team. And he said, I'm actually looking for an acquisition guy. And I didn't know. So just to be transparent, I had no idea what an acquisition guy meant. But I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And he said, I'm actually looking for a door knocker. And I'm like, sure. I mean, if I knew what a door knocker was today, back in that day, I never would do it. But he literally handed me a list of people that were losing their house. And I went door to door, knocked on their door every single Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. I would go home. I'd go online. I would skip trace that number, which means that I would put their name and their address into 411.com or white pages, and I would get the best phone number for that house, and I would call till 7 o'clock. After that, I'd take care of the kids, and then my work would stop. But it was an all-day affair, and that's how I got my start.
Wow. Bob, I did not know that. I didn't know you door knocked. I mean, yep. I think to real estate investors today, and I think of all the people I know and the people that are just entering the industry, and I'll bet you less than 1% of 1% of them would ever go out there and actually hit the pavement and knock on doors. Because in today's world, I just think everybody has just tried finding the path of the least amount of work, the easiest way. But usually that way is usually the fastest path to failing as well, and the fastest path to either getting really lucky and then losing it all. But your way, that grit, that just hard work. And listen, being a professional athlete, I can't even probably imagine how much time you spent on ice just drilling, just practicing, just just perfecting it, and just a lot of people just don't have what it takes to do that. But I commend you for that because that's what got you to where you're at. But one of the things I want to pivot to is something you helped me with, and I don't even remember how long ago it was. I had gotten to a point in my business where, I was just working my tail off, and a lot of the tasks I was doing were just menial tasks, but I did them because, hey, I can do them, right? And we started talking. You were talking about your VA operation, REVA Global, and you're like, listen, like that's all stuff a VA could do. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want my clients talking to somebody that doesn't speak English, and it just seems salesy. And you're like, no, 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 it's very different. And I remember you connected me with, I think you nailed it the first time. I don't remember, but our first VA, and that literally changed the way we do everything because even today we still use VAs, and we use VAs to do all the things no one else on the team would have time for or would pay enough attention to the details for. I mean, it just seems like what you've created there and what you turned me on to with the virtual assistants has changed the entire way we do business here. So how did you end up finding that company? And was it a similar thing? You were just burning it at both ends, just being like, why can't I ever seem to get ahead? Why am I always working so much? I need help, but I don't want to hire somebody for 40, 50, 60,000. Let's share that story.
No, that's a good question. So I started, like we talked about, started my first deal was in 2004, and then I started doing short sales. And at that time I was door knocking, and then I hired a door knocker, and then I jumped on the phone negotiating with banks. And then Pat and I helped start a real estate education program, coaching program. And this is back in, when was that? That was 2006 or the end of 2005, the first one. And our job was to run the back end of the coaching program. So we did the coaching for this company, front end company. They were doing the sales, and we would do all the short sale coaching. And because we were always working on hundreds of short sales at any given time. So we knew every little bank, every nuance of what happened in their banks. And we would also invest here in Connecticut, and a guy by the name of Than Merrill, living in Connecticut, Fortune Builders. This is before Fortune Builders, of course. And Than would always call me, be like, "Hey Bob, what's going on? I got a new short sale. I'm dealing with Bank of America. What do I do?" So we would always have a great relationship. Pat, myself, Than, his two business partners. And in 2007, they had an idea to start Fortune Builders because Paul, who was his business partner, was running around selling a rehab course. Than was wholesale course. And the next step, a lot of times when anyone sees individuals go from REA group to REA group to REA group, they have a list of names, and they typically start a coaching program. That's usually the next step. So Than and his team came to Pat and I said, "Hey, we've never run a coaching program. Are you guys interested in joining the team? You guys want to partner up?" We're like, "Sure, why not?" I mean, you got guys that graduated from Yale. Why not, right? So not knowing what it would turn into, which was a phenomenal ride. This is 2007. I went from creating a short sale flagship system course while investing, while helping create this coaching program. So through the years, you found this, Chris, or you found this as you may have found this as well. But what I've noticed is when I was coaching and teaching students, let's say I would have a coaching call today. What I find is when I got in the same call the week after with the same person, a lot of common themes kept coming up. They didn't have time to do those tasks. And then, looking back, a lot of them work part-time or full-time, or were trying to do this as a side hustle. And I was always looking. It took me, it took me about 7 years to finally figure it out, because I was looking for any product, any service that could help the students out actually do the tasks. In 2013, a guy I brought on as a coach was using virtual assistants. He's like, "Hey, virtual assistants are great." I'm like, "What's a virtual assistant?" So he educated me on it, and I saw him do a presentation on it because I handled, creating kind of a mini mastermind, and he did a presentation on virtual assistants. I'm like, you know what? There's a business there. So that's when I first started testing and launching that business. 2014, launched my first virtual assistant company while coaching, while running an investment company. So that was a start of all. I know that was long-winded. I do apologize, but that's the story.
No, I think it's long-winded or not. I mean, it's an important story because every single person that's going to watch this podcast, which will be a lot, thousands of people, join us for this podcast. And, each one of them will struggle with the same thing. Maybe not right now, but somewhere in their journey, they're going to struggle with the point where there just is no more time. And then you got to start changing things. You got to start figuring things out. And a lot of times when you hit that point, it's earlier in your career where you're wearing all the hats. And then all of a sudden, you don't have the money. You're wearing all the hats. You're just getting started. You're just starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but there's still no extra money. And you just don't know how to hire the person you need to take on those duties. And that's where VAs come in, because it's a really, really affordable way to buy time. Because that's really all you're doing. You're literally, you're buying time. And folks, if you all haven't figured this out, time is the single most precious resource you will ever have. And it does not have a dollar symbol after it, because your time can't be bought, because it's priceless, really. And I think too many people in life go through life putting a dollar amount to their hour. I'm worth $100 an hour, $250 an hour, $750 an hour. Your hour is truly priceless. And when you realize that, then you all of a sudden will change the way you do everything. You'll work smarter. You'll get VAs in the beginning. Those VAs will help you transition your business through those times. And then as you start hiring an executive team and start hiring all the people, you're still going to need VAs, because all your executive team is going to need somebody to help. So you might actually have a team of VAs supporting your executive team. And that's just the natural the natural trajectory and how this whole thing works. So folks, if any of you are looking at yourself every single day in the mirror saying, I just have no more time, this is how to do it. And, I'm sure, Bob will give you the path on how you can work with him, because we did, and it worked really well. Yeah. But Bob, let's talk about your primary business today, and that's still in real estate. So what is it that you're doing today? I know you're kicking ass and taking names. So let's just talk about what that looks like.
Yeah. So we have a team here. We have so just to give you a little broad kind of view of what it looks like, we have our virtual assistants in the Philippines. So that's where all of our virtual assistants are, REVA Global. They have a task. So we've broken all of our business down into, you obviously have branding, you have marketing, right? You have acquisition, and then you have disposition. I know some other individuals have different. If you're property management, you also have a property management department. If you're construction, you also have a construction department. We mainly wholesale, right, in this office. So our virtual assistants drive in the leads. They do different types of cold calling, direct messaging. We do PPC, PPL. We do a lot of that different stuff that drives in the leads to our sales floor. So right now we have 6 sales guys that are on the floor. We're adding on another 2. And then what our team does at that point, it's their job to get properties under contract. And as soon as they're under contract, it goes to our dispo team, and then they obviously sell the deals. So we have virtual assistants sprinkled throughout each team, like you stated a little bit earlier, but that's how our business is. And last year we did 185 transactions. We're looking to do 185 again. We're probably on path right now to do about 200. So that's our sweet spot, because, we got caught up in that, we got to do 1,000 deals kind of, once you actually get caught up in, the what's the word I'm looking for? Once you get caught up in that kind of, look at me number and doing 1,000 deals, you realize your profits aren't as high as when you actually run an efficient business. So I've tried everything. I've been in business for a long time. And what you'll realize is if you have the right team, you will make more money with less. I think that's really, really important. So we set it up. We got our VAs. We have our team here. We have 2 dispo guys, soon to be 3. We have 1 TC, 1 admin. And like I said, we have virtual assistants sprinkled throughout.
Your real estate business lives and dies by the network and the connections that you make. I mean, after all, your network, well, it's your net worth. That's what you always heard, right? If that's an area where you desire improvement, well, Private Money Club is for you. PMC saves you precious time and money by bringing the real estate world, well, right to you, right in the palm of your hand. So get in on the action like so many others have by going to privatemoneyclub.com and sign up.
One interesting thing about that is you and I have been part of Boardroom Mastermind, which is, folks, a mastermind that we've been, circling around for many, many, many years, probably one of the best if you're a real estate investor. And we have seen these folks the look at me folks, we've seen these wholesalers come in, out of pretty much nowhere, and they're, doing 800, 1,000 deals. And, it's kind of funny because a year later, 2 years later, you're back at the mastermind again, and you see that same person and they're struggling. you're like, how are you struggling? You were doing 1,000 deals. You made $10 million. Like, what happened? But what they were doing is they might have made 10 million, but it's not the amount of money in the bank. I think some people live their lives, where they're just writing checks, and there might not be any money in the bank. It's just money's coming in and money's going out, and they're not running a business. They're not watching their books. And I think some of the best advice I got early on from a really unbelievably successful development group was every single week, you need to be reviewing your financials, your balance sheet, your profit and loss, your cash flow statement every week. And you need to be tweaking little things every week. And if you're not, you're running your business into the ground. And I've never, ever not done that. And by running a business by the numbers and running it, looking at financials, knowing how your business is actually performing is really vital. Because I think a lot of people just get caught up in those numbers. Like, well, we did 1,000 deals. And it's just like, Bob, you and I, you will hear that in boardroom probably a dozen times every mastermind. And I'm just thinking, all right, well, you did this many deals. Doesn't mean you have any money at all. Actually, it could mean you're broke, because you're just not focusing on the important things. But with wholesaling, I got to ask you a question, and then we'll unpack that one a little bit. I've been in the real estate space since 2006. So you got me beat by a couple of years. And I've seen a lot of things change. But the one consistent is it just seems like there's just always consistency in wholesaling. And it blows my mind because today it just seems like every single week I'm getting called by 5 to 10 wholesalers. It's just like, how is there enough out there to support all of this wholesaling going on? And then after that, I want to kind of talk about 2025 and some things I see coming in the horizon and how that will either help or hurt your business and other wholesalers. But let's just go back to like the boardroom and, the number wearers, the badge wearers.
Yeah, this is some advice I'll give everyone. If they see someone on stage, don't 100% always believe that they're profitable, just like you said, because I have some good buddies that from different organizations that hit that 1,000 number, and before you know it, a year later, they're not at that mastermind anymore. And this is outside boardroom. This is just a different mastermind. I'm like, what happened to them? They were just on stage saying how good they were. So just vet. That's all I recommend. Just vet whoever you're gonna, whether you're gonna be doing business with, whoever you're listening to. Vet me. You know what I mean? Call me, vet me, make sure. And that's one of the reasons why. You invest in real estate. You obviously have other services, other products. Same with me. I use my virtual assistant in my business every single day. So I think it's important. But to get to your other question about wholesalers. Real estate investing has been around forever. So going all the way back to the Carlton Sheets days and, different types of strategies. I think there's going to be a never ending line of real estate investors that come and go in business forever. As long as there's housing, as long as there's places, people need to live somewhere. And there's always money in houses. There's always money in buying and holding. There's always money in rehabbing. So I think that space, there's always going to be coming because, you look at it, we're buddies with a lot of mentors out there, right? That teach this stuff at a very high level and do a great job of it. And they market for new investors every single day. I just brought my son, he's 20 years old. He's almost in college. He's still playing junior hockey, but he's starting his business. He wants to do real estate. So, that's a 20-year-old as an example. I have another intern that's 21 that's playing hockey at Conn College. That's in internship for the summertime. And he just said, hey, I have a bunch of guys on my team that want to intern next summer. So I think, all the way, when you're a kid, you're seeing a lot of people that have a lot of money. They, like you said, they understand the finances, but a lot of them also take that money and invest in real estate. So I don't think it's ever going to end, to be honest with you.
That's awesome. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the economy and the economic conditions that are developing right now. Unless any of you that are watching this live under a rock, I think you can kind of see some of the things that are happening. We've been in the longest bull run in history. So things have been really good for a really long period of time. There's been a lot of money, frothy, and then it started pulling back. And then all of a sudden we had the pandemic, and then $5.2 trillion just made its way and injected into the economy and into the banking system, which fueled the next rally, which is kind of what we're seeing, I think, the tail end of. Now, Bob, the question I have for you is, you got a very pivotal election going on at the end of this year, got a lot of things developing. I feel like the markets are definitely being propped up, which is very typical for an election year. It's almost, I did a YouTube video about that on how right before an election, the markets are always up, but they usually fall on their face after. And I think that's where we're at. And I think just from what I see now, I study this stuff like a freaking nerd, but I think this could be a really bad one. And
Mhm.
if the whole economy does let loose, if things do start to really fall apart, let's just say we enter a recession and a prolonged recession,
Mhm.
what would be the strategy you would apply in your wholesaling operation to seize more market share? How would you go into a recessionary period, to gain, not lose?
Well, let me go back to '07, '08, '09 because we both lived through that. I'm kicking myself because there's a huge opportunity, but I didn't know. What I would do is I would gain access to as much money as I can. Right. So obviously, I would talk to you. I would talk to me. I would talk to anybody in the industry. Right. I would want access to money and say, all right, because I don't know if a lot of people don't know this, but there's a lot of money sitting on the sidelines, a ton of money sitting on the sidelines just waiting. So, how I would do it, and I wish I did it back then, is I would, like I said, first gain access to that money, and I could change the way you're doing business. If you're not going to wholesale, then buy and hold, then start rehabbing and selling. It's okay because I saw the whole. Do you remember that back in '08, '09? It was like, oh, I don't have any money. I'm
Oh, I
still
remember.
looking at. Do you remember? There were so many commercial deals. I drove by this one development. I'm like, could you imagine if it's going to happen again? I believe not as bad, but it could, just like you said, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think that it's more of an opportunity than a negative, especially if we're starting today. You got to start today. You can't wait to next year or the year after. Start today on learning about the financial side, learning about how to get money, learning about access to that. That is first and foremost, because if you don't have access to money, you won't be able to, honestly, you won't be able to take advantage of the opportunities.
I agree. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
throw in a shameless plug to privatemoneyclub.com, but as of today,
Yeah.
there's over 6,000 members on there, and they are all individuals like you and I. And a large percentage of them are private lenders, people with money that want to make more money. And, so that's a really good source because as the market falls apart, stock market goes down, usually that's your first thing that's going to happen. People are going to seek returns in other fashions in other industries, and alternatives will become very popular if they aren't right now already popular. And people are going to be seeking to make money on their cash because money doesn't disappear in a recession, folks. It just changes hands. It just shifts
Mhm.
to different pots. So when that happens, I mean, there's going to be a big influx of money in private money clubs. So you're looking for money. That's a one-stop shop. Just go in there and it's free. Sign up. So privatemoneyclub.com, not to steal any thunder from you, but it definitely, that's going to be a good source. But
I agree 100% because there is, and I am yelling that from the rooftops. I mean, there's so much money in the sidelines. I'll give you an example. I live in West Hartford, Connecticut. And as soon as a property goes on the market, it's gone within 1 to 3 days. And they're all cash offers. So if you're looking at those typical stats, you look at some of the hot markets in the country, people are buying in cash. So that means there's a boatload of money that's sitting on the sidelines. Obviously, you have 6,000 plus members on your platform. That's where I would go first to be 100% transparent.
well, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, it's going to take money to make money, but there's going to be deals upon deals. It's going to be one of the
Mhm.
biggest opportunities of our life. And if I can just take it back to REVA Global, in the final, couple things that we're going to talk about here, with VAs, how important do you think that's going to be, getting inexpensive, help to get you where you need to be going into this
Mhm.
recessionary period, if that's where we end?
Well, that's a great question because I was just at the boardroom. I did this presentation, and we looked at so every state's different, obviously, when you look at minimum wage and minimum wage. So in Connecticut, it just went up. I think it's up to 15.69 right now, $15.69 per hour for minimum wage. Now, I don't know about you, but whenever I see somebody come to the office that's looking for a job, they're not minimum wage. When I go to somewhere like McDonald's or somewhere like that, that's the minimum wage, individual that you're getting. I don't know, but I can't run a successful real estate company with minimum wage individuals here in Connecticut. I can't do it. Maybe someone else could do it around the country, but for me, it's very, very difficult. So we all have to start looking at that. We got to know, like you said, you got to know your numbers, what's going out and what's coming in. Very simple math. So you look at the industry of virtual assistants now since COVID, everyone's like, wow, Now I could picture myself working with someone who's remote. So the definition of a virtual assistant, it could be someone in the United States, it could be someone, like I said, mine are all in the Philippines, it could be someone in a different country, but that's considered a remote worker now. And people, investors are very, very open. We have a lot of medical offices too, are very open to working with virtual assistants now, which is, I think is going to be extremely important since, profit margins are a little, tighten up a little bit.
No, you couldn't have said that any better. And I think you're absolutely right. Everything changed during COVID when we literally went remote. So now all of a sudden, virtual assistants are just like, most operations are working remotely with people all over the country. I know I have an office space here, but most of my staff is throughout the country. So VAs plug into that really well. But Bob, as we kind of wrap up this podcast episode, how would people go about, reaching out to you or learning more about what you do with VAs and your real estate?
Yeah, very simple. You can check us out online, REVA Global, REVA Global.com. Also on Instagram, I do a lot of podcasts on Facebook, Instagram, all those social media sites. You can find me direct, send me a message, ask any type of question you want. I'm around. If I see you at a mastermind, just like Chris and I see each other very, very often, just come up to me and introduce yourself.
I love it. Well, folks, as we wrap this episode, definitely reach out to Bob and his company. We did. It was one of the best decisions I ever made, and I never stopped. It just set me down a path that I wasn't going down, and it's changed everything. So definitely set up a call, talk to his team about how VAs can really change the dynamics of your company. We'll put the links in the description here. But folks, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Money School Podcast. We'll see you on the next one.